Welcome once again to the live version of the Forward Podcast. I'm Derrick Day. And before we get started, if you are watching this on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube or TikTok, please make sure that you like the video and you subscribe and or follow, because that is what will help what we talk about here get to the widest possible audience. And that's what we want to do. We want to make sure that basically everyone has tools in their toolbox with which they can operate efficiently and optimally. Okay, because that's the whole purpose of this podcast. So make sure you like and subscribe. Click, click the bell on YouTube to make sure that you're getting notifications of when these things happen. Okay, so this week I want to start the new year off by talking about freeing your mind, because all of us at some point are faced with limiting thoughts or beliefs. And these limiting thoughts or beliefs are the things that keep us in mental, emotional, and spiritual bondage. And here's the thing, that when you are in bondage, you cannot operate in freedom. See, here's the thing. People think that because they have some sort of religious understanding, that somehow this religious understanding liberates them. And I'm going to tell you something. Let me just lay this on the line, that there are no religious beliefs in any belief system that liberate anyone. All religious beliefs help to circumscribe or contain behaviors and actions. And when you are constrained, you are not free. It's the difference between being held up in a hothouse or being free range. So what I'm trying to get everyone to see is you want to be a free range thinker. In other words, that your thoughts are not constrained by anything. Now, watch. I've talked about religion, and let's start there, because I believe that at the root of pretty much every human problem, at the root of pretty much every human negative situation, that you'll find religion there. Religion, excuse me, I believe dwells at the root of all humanity's problems. And I'll stick to that. I don't have any problem holding on to that. But here's the thing, that when you are tied up in a belief system and you can't see the value in any other belief systems, or you can't see the value in no belief system, or let me say this for my fellow atheists out there, that you have to be comfortable with other people believing what you don't believe. And I know sometimes I'm guilty of that, because my alternative mission, if you will, is the destruction of religion. But there are still many people who are tied to it for different reasons. And I believe that in order for you to be free from religion, you have to first see how fucked up religion is. And if you don't see that, you won't get free. But the thing is that even someone as eloquent and persuasive as I can't help someone who doesn't want to get free. So, with that being said, religious beliefs, you have to look at whatever it is that you believe religiously, whatever you believe spiritually, and you have to say, okay, this works for me. It may not work for you, and that's cool. See, you have to be cool with that. The problem is that religion seeks to not only gain its own level, but it seeks to usurp the levels of others. You know how water finds its own level. Religion isn't like that. Religion will try to go over the sides, right? Religion immediately wants to spill over and flood into other areas. And so when you're in this frame of mind religiously, where you can't see the value of other people's thoughts, other people's beliefs, other people's dogmas, other people's doctrines, then basically you are enslaved to your beliefs. See, I honestly believe that and I hate to say this, God, I hate to admit this, but maybe there are a few free thinking Christians out here that they believe what they believe, but they allow a birth or space for other beliefs. Me personally, I haven't actually seen this in the wild, but it may exist, and so I'm trying to give accommodation for that to illustrate that I'm not closed-minded and that I am a free thinker. But this is not just for to illustrate it for me, but to also help you to understand what free thinking really is. Because free thinking not only believes or thinks what it is that you think or believe, but it also accommodates a dissension. It accommodates differentiation and diversity, and you have to have that, because if you don't, you're enslaved by your beliefs. And so the first thing that we have to do in order to free our mind is to take away the constraints, take away the leash that religion has us on. That we have to get outside the hothouse of religion and get into the free range of thoughts and ideas, where our thoughts can be uh, in open spaces, if you will, with others. I mean, this is really powerful, because if you are, again, stuck and you believe that your way is the only way, and watch this, I'm going to speak about Christians here, because Christians will say that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And I honestly believe that if there were such a person as Jesus, that he didn't actually say that. That he said something else that was mistranslated, something like your self actualization or your awareness or your understanding of your own I am is the way to truth and life. That's me personally. Your mileage may vary. All right, second thing, political and ideological beliefs. Again, we have become in the United States, we have become so galvanized in our political thinking that we believe that if you're a liberal, you believe the conservatives are wrong. If you're a conservative, you believe the liberals are wrong, and each side believes the other side is a clear and present danger to the other. And in a lot of cases, that is true, but you have to be open-minded enough to know that not everyone is like that. And so you're going to have to be prepared to put on your discretionary hat and determine what is the difference between those who are out to harm you and those who simply disagree with you, because there is a difference. There are some people that they just simply disagree. They, for whatever reason, they don't like how you think, or you don't like how they think. But there are some people who actually want to cause you harm. And you have to learn how to distinguish between the two, because if you don't, you'll ascribe danger to someone who presents no harm to you, or you'll ignore the danger that is presented to you by someone else. You gotta learn this discretion. And the other thing is that again, me, speaking of me, I consider myself to be a democratic socialist. That's where I land on the political spectrum. But I do believe that there are some conservatives who are compassionate, who do have some good ideas. They do have some good thoughts. And so there, but here's the thing, that whenever a thought occurs that may cause harm to another, that is a limiting thought or belief. And those are the ones that actually wind up causing harm. Not every hurtful thought is a harmful thought. Okay, but every harmful thought is both hurtful and harmful. And we have to learn to distinguish between the two. And also that not everyone in the opposing camp is someone who has to be regarded as a threat. Some people are just dissenters. Some people have, and I have to say this, like when I was in high school, we had political clubs in high school, yeah, young Democrats and young Republicans. And so everybody went into Young Democrats because in growing up in inner city Detroit in the 70s, that's kind of how it was. So I joined Young Republicans because I wanted to go down a different path. And so I wound up being a very conservative Republican for most of my adult life. And I was also from the mindset that all liberals were evil. But now that I've seen some light from the other side, I've actually switched my thinking, and I'm no longer conservative nor Republican, but I'm both Democratic and socialist, because I saw the harm that neoconservatism was doing to society. And so that was my switch. Now, not everyone is a neoconservative. Not everyone is hyped or wrapped up in national Christian nationalism or any other, uber right wing fascist thinking like that. Some people are just, hey, I believe in the value of patriotism and the value of country and the value of having good Christian values. In other words, these are people that they don't seek to harm, they don't seek to overrun others. They just simply want to have their ideas considered in the forum of public consideration. Okay, and again, you have to be free enough to consider something that doesn't line up with what you believe or what you think. And that brings me to the third point. And that is being able to consider an idea and not necessarily accept it. See, the thing is, we can all entertain different thoughts. We can all entertain different ideas. And this is a sign of intellectual or emotional maturity. When you can hear somebody couch an idea or belief that is different than yours, and you can weigh it, consider it, fathom it, without necessarily embracing it. And now here's the thing. There sometimes you will hear a thought or an idea that is contrary to what you believe, and it becomes so compelling that it allows you to change your position. This doesn't happen all the time. And I'm not saying that everybody should just be open to that. I mean, well, let me say, you should be open to it, even if you don't always acquiesce to it. Does that make sense? Because the thing is, you have to be able to hold two disparate ideas in the same space, juxtaposing them to compare and contrast them, and walk away with what you consider to be a prevailing or superior understanding. Sometimes, and this is the other thing too, because we live in the information age, We have information available to us at our fingertips, literally. Any cell phone, we can Google anything. We can look things up. The wealth of university information, of schools of thought on philosophy, on religion, on technology, that they are all out there, a lot of it in the public domain. So to say that we accept something ignorantly, in other words, without considering alternative perspectives, we are in the age that that shouldn't happen. There is enough information out here that you should be able to look at an opposing idea without confirmation bias. And see, that's the other thing too. A lot of times, instead of trying to free our mind, we put our own mind under further bondage and under further constraint by limiting what we allow into our minds through the filter of confirmation bias. In other words, I only want information that lines up with what I already believe. So you're saying that you're unwilling to consider an opposing view. And again, that speaks to intellectual and emotional immaturity. Because when you are intellectually mature, emotionally mature, that you can entertain multiple thoughts that may not all be in agreement and make a decision as to which one is the superior one. Now, this is the other thing, that you should always be open to the fact that what is opposing your particular belief may be the superior conclusion. And when superior information arises, you have to let that superior information displace that which you held on to previously. And that is called growth. See, here's the other thing. I'm saying so many things. This is the thing. This is the other thing. This is yet another thing that when we are in a mode of being static, we're not allowing anything to reshape, reframe, or remodel our thinking. That we think that our way is the best way, or our way of thinking, our school of thought is the best way. And what you do is you close yourself off. You become galvanized. You become inert in your thinking. And that means that no organic change can happen. Now, this is what happens when you get yourself into a position of galvanization or inert thinking, that when something comes that upsets your paradigm and causes you to change, it's not going to be an organic change. This is going to be a change of force. This is going to be something that really upsets everything that you think of. See, here's the thing. I keep saying that. That is a cliche, and I need to free my thinking from cliches. We have to get to the point where something that comes along, that we're able to identify the superiority of that thought over our own. And when we get to that point, now we're in a posture of growth. And just like here, when you are trying to transform your body, that is, you're trying to work out, you're trying to get stronger, you're trying to lose weight, you're trying to gain weight, whatever. In order to do that, you have to go through some steps, and typically an organic change where you're making a conscious decision to embrace something different. You're allowing superior information to come in to reshape, reframe, or remodel your body, and it works out good. But when you become inert, then the only thing that will cause change is something that's dysfunctional or disease in your body. And when something gets out of whack that causes you to gain a massive amount of weight or lose a massive amount of weight or causes your strength to dwindle in an unnatural way, now you're forced to deal with some change rather than you embracing the change. And it's the same way with thinking, because if you're galvanized or inert in your thinking, that when something comes to change that, it's going to be painful. It's going to be difficult. You are not going to embrace this because this didn't happen organically. And so that's why what I'm trying to say is try to embrace organic change to your thinking wherever possible. In other words, place yourself in a posture of growth. When you, again, to use the transformation of the human body as an example, you're going to get your best results in losing weight, gaining weight, shaping up, bulking up, sharpening up, whatever it is that you're trying to do. You're going to get this when you, at best, when you have chosen to do this, because now what it is that you're open to the thinking that may cause you to do the things that you need to do to get the abs that you want. Likewise, with your thinking, if you want to be a free thinker, if you want to go beyond the box or the constraints or the constrictions of whatever it is that you believe, whatever your belief paradigm is, whatever your ideological paradigm is, and you say, I want to grow beyond that, then that means that you're going to have to place yourself in a posture of learning so that these changes can come to your mind and enter into your spirit or your soul organically. Because again, and let me give you an example in a corporate sense. Civil rights. The civil rights movement. The civil rights movement was not an organic change. This was not a change that America naturally embraced. This was a change by force. And because it was a change by force, now we're dealing with the ramifications of that forced change. And the reality is that there were people back then that were not ready for it. Now, understand this, that sometimes things are not always going to be under the ideal conditions. For example, if you need to change your diet because you're diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, that is a shock. You're not changing organically, you're changing by force. And sometimes in instances like that, and in the case of the United States, racism was an illness that plagued the country, much like how type 2 diabetes challenges the human body. This was a change by force. But the thing is that when there is a change by force, there are other mitigating things that have to be addressed in order to make this change permanent and effective. And in the case of the civil rights movement, those changes were neither permanent nor effective. And so we are dealing with the upshot of that, the fruit of that now. So again, we need to free our mind, free our thinking. We need to get past limiting beliefs, and there are other limiting beliefs too, because things that you place on yourself. When you say, I'm not good enough, I'm not strong enough, I'm not smart enough, I can't for whatever reason, I don't have because, and listen, there are things that are absolutely outside of your control. Again, let's use racism as an example. Systemic racism is a thing, and systemic racism does hinder a lot of minorities, women, and people of different sexual orientations from actually achieving things. I mean, there are systemic things that limit people of color, people of sexual diversity, and so on and so forth. There are constraints, and these are real things, but and you have no control over those, but you do have complete control over how you react to them. You have complete control of what your decision of how you choose to handle that is. That is what you have in your control. That's what's in your wheelhouse. Now, you can decide that these things are going to be a hindrance to me and I will not succeed simply because these things exist. Or you can say, I'm going to try to find things around it, over it, under it, through it, so that I can get to the destiny that I want to get to. And again, we have limiting beliefs. Sometimes we think that I didn't come from a wealthy enough family, or I didn't have the right education. You can insert all kinds of limiting beliefs. But what you have to do is you have to say, okay, how do I identify limiting thoughts and beliefs in my life? Now, watch this, right? If you're thinking something that organically prevents you from taking action to do something to improve or better yourself, that is a limiting thought or behavior. And so what you need to do is you need to go through the inventory of thoughts in your mind and examine each one carefully and say, is this something that is hindering me from moving forward into doing the things that I want to do, or the things that I think that I have the ability to do? Are these things stopping me? Are they hindering me? And if they are, then those are limiting beliefs. The second form of limiting beliefs are, you need to look at, again, take inventory of every thought in your head, every thought that goes through your head, and say, okay, are my thoughts potentially harmful to anyone else? Because if my thoughts become toxic to anyone else, that they are harmful. And again, I encourage you to go back and look through a lot of my videos, because I talk about the difference between hurt and harm. I've talked about it in this podcast. I've talked about it in Phreology with Aaron Tomlinson. I've talked about this in many forums, that there is a difference between hurt and harm. Because if I say something like, man, God, motherfuckers like you. Now, if I say something like that, that's definitely hurtful, because you're like, wow, calling me out like that, that's fucked up. But if I say that all motherfuckers like you should be incarcerated or placed in camps or something like that, now I've said something that's harmful. Is calling you a motherfucker. Listen, people call me all kinds of names all the time, and I've learned to let that roll off me. But when if you threaten me, you threaten my well-being, you threaten my income, you threaten anything like that, now you're a genuine threat, and I'll deal with you accordingly. But that's what we have to do. We have to take every thought, inventory every thought, and say, okay, is this something that's stopping me? Am I my own limitation? Or am I a potential cause of harm to someone? And in that consideration of what is harmful to others, also consider what is harmful to you. Because you have the greatest capability of harming yourself. Nobody can harm you like you. Now, the last thing, how do you know that you are operating in freedom? When you say that there is no limitation to me based on my understanding of my capability. Notice that I said limitation based on capability, because I will never play in the NBA. I don't care how many 3-point shots I shoot. I don't care how many dribbling drills I execute. I don't care how much time I spend in the gym hooping it up with others. I'm never going to play in the NBA. That's just reality. So if I say something like, well, I'm going to do everything that I can to play in the NBA, that's unrealistic thought. And unrealistic thoughts are just as limiting as negative thoughts. But if I say, in the next year, I'm going to do a TED Talk. In the next year, I will get another book published. In the next year, I will increase my income by 50%. Now, those are all goals that if I set my mind to it, I think I could achieve all of them. And that's the thing. You have to inventory your thoughts, inventory your goals, your dreams, and see if they are aligned with reality. So, what are your limiting thoughts? What are your limiting beliefs? What are the things do you think that you are doing to hold you back? Or what are the things that you're doing or saying that could be harmful to others? Can you identify a potential threat versus just simple opposition? Have you considered an opposing opinion? And are you taking inventory of what's in your head? Because all of these things, in other words, in order to get to a point of free thinking where your mind is totally liberated, and that means that you are not constrained by ideology, by religion, by philosophy, but you are capable of thinking contrary to any established paradigm or orthodoxy. And that's when you know that you can oppose something. And here's the one last thing. If you can oppose those things and maintain your peace. In other words, you are entertaining a diverse thought, but it doesn't upset your emotional, spiritual, or intellectual apple cart. So that's what I have. I'm going to go through the comments here, and it wasn't a lot of comments. I understand this is the last week of the NFL season, so people are watching football. But again, maybe you'll catch it on replay, and if you do, that's great. Again, if you like what you hear, click like, put the hearts in and all that other stuff. If you're on TikTok, give me some stars or some gifts or whatever, because that shit helps to move the algorithm. If you're on Facebook, your comments, your likes, all of that help to drive the algorithm, and that helps this information get out to others. And also, if you are listening on iTunes or on Spotify, on Podbean, on Anchor, or wherever good podcasts are found, make sure you subscribe to the Forward Podcast. You won't be disappointed. So, comments. Jimmy Liggins says, I'm a free thinker to the point where a person's belief do not harm anyone else. I don't care what nonsense people believe, as long as it doesn't keep others from a positive life experience. And yes, I completely agree. And holy smokes, I've been getting a lot of this lately, and I'm going to go ahead and deal with this publicly, because someone, Lillian Kwamboka, has said, may God bless you, even if you don't want to help us, $30. Lately, I've been getting a lot of comments on the socials, people asking for money. And this is the thing, that people are doing this publicly now, because what they're doing is they'll go to your inbox and ask you for money, and you don't respond. I mean, personally, if I had $1 for everyone who asked me for $1, I'd have a couple of $1,000. I mean, it's a lot. And so I've learned to not respond or move these things to my spam box or whatever, so that I just don't have to deal with them. Now, here's the thing: there are some people out there, and it takes some discretion. Sometimes you have to have some friends that can vet other people, but I do help people. I do. I'm not heartless, but I also understand that there are some people that are out here just gaming for money. I also understand that having spent time in Africa, that internet access over there is not cheap. And for what you spend on internet access to try to gig people for money, you could actually be feeding somebody. So trying to publicly call out someone and shaming them publicly, in order to get an emotional response, I'm not that guy. Trying to shame people for publicly for an emotional response, I call bullshit on that, and I don't respond to it. So Lillian, no, I will not be sending you any money. That's the bottom line here. Sandra says, I always say, I don't care if someone wants to worship their own big toe, to each their own. Yeah, and that's cool. As long as what you believe doesn't impact me in any way. And the problem with Christian nationalism is that people want their Christian beliefs to shape public policy, and that's wrong. No, you don't get to shape public policy. If e pluribus unum is going to have any meaning, then that means that the out of many one is really out of many, and that all diversity is accounted for and included. And Jimmy says, people asking for money in the name of God are ridiculous, and I completely agree. If you believe in God and you think that your God is almighty, ask your God for some fucking money and see what happens. So I don't know if there's anyone else that wants to join in, or if anybody wants to comment or anything. But if you haven't commented, or if you're catching this on the replay, be sure to drop your comments in here. I'd love to hear from you, because your comments are helping me shape what I share with you. And I'm hoping that some of this you'll find useful. You'll be able to put it in your toolbox and make use of it at a later date. So until the next time, thank you for attending my TED Talk. Y'all have a great Sunday and a fantastic week, and we will see you again in 7 days.